think everybody, including myself, was becoming a little bit concerned when we didn't hear from Larry Nichols for a couple of weeks. But Larry is back. Larry, great to have you on the show. How are you feeling?
I'm good to be back. A little down, but I'm still here.
Right. Okay.
Still here, buddy.
Good to hear you, and we'll go for as long as you're comfortable. If you start to feel that you can't continue, then we'll just stop whenever you're ready. I think people were very concerned, Larry, and of course, your health is always a concern for our viewers. Nobody wants to see you infirmed, and we always like to encourage people to visit Larry's website, which is nicholslive.com. People who enjoy listening to Larry on the show here should definitely go over to nicholslive.com and click on the donate tab. Right there, it's going to give you Larry's PayPal address, which is nicholslive@aol.com. Larry, the donate button doesn't seem to be working for some reason on nicholslive.com. Let's see if we can, maybe it's my mouse. But people can go to nicholslive.com and click on donate, and if you get onto PayPal, you can financially support Larry using nicholslive@aol.com. Something seems to be going on with the Nichols Live website, Larry, so I don't know if there's someone who can look at that for you, but we've got some important things to discuss today, right?
You bet. You bet.
Yeah. I made the title of today's video, Larry Nichols told you this was coming over a year ago, and you did. I remember, you and I have been doing this show on Tuesdays at 3 o'clock Eastern for just about a year, and one of the first things you told us was that the Democrats were going to promise financial reparations for Black Americans, and the reparations are for slavery, and sure enough, tomorrow there's a hearing in Congress about that very topic.
Right. What's going to happen, Jason, is the Democrats, as a part of their presidential platform, they're going to include reparation for the blacks in America. Mm-hmm. And, Jason, it's called a sweetener. It's something to throw out to try to activate the blacks to come out and vote in large numbers. The stuff you haven't seen yet, that they're not telling yet, is they're even going to go so far as to promise $5,000 per person, $25,000 for a four-member family.
Wow.
Now, reality is there's no way it will come to pass. They know it, you know it, I know it. I hope the audience knows it. It will not come to pass. But what they're trying to do, they understand, the Democrats understand what you and I talked about, and seem to have been the only ones, and may still be the only ones that's yet to figure it out. This election is different than any other election, just like I've told you. The old formula for an election is 40-40-20, 40 Republican, 40 Democrat, 20% in the middle called swing voters, and both sides work to get the lion's share of the swing vote. That's not the case this year. This year, thanks to President Trump, or because of President Trump, we're just about at a 50-50 split. So the Democrats have resolved, just like I hope the Republicans figure out, that it's about the soft base. This election comes down to your soft base. Now, for those that don't know, President Trump has a hard base and a soft base. The hard base usually is about 40%. They will turn out, Jason, and support the president, vote for him if there's an earthquake. They're going to go vote for the president.
Right.
It's soft base, 60%. They favor the president and likely would vote for him, but they're just not hell-bent to go vote. If something else happens, they won't vote. If they get discouraged, they won't vote. Also, if they think their vote's not needed and Trump's going to win by landslide, they won't go vote. So that's the group that will determine whether there's a victory for us in 2020. The Democrats, on the other hand, they're going directly after their soft base. they're using a thing called politically sweeteners. And what it's designed to do, if you're a black, and somebody is promising you $5,000 for doing nothing, if you're struggling as a family and somebody's promising you $25,000,
it's pretty appealing.
It is, and you're put in a situation where they probably are lying, but you know what? We ought to see.
Right.
So it's designed to motivate them to vote. Then, for the millennials, which is a huge voting population and growing every day, they know that college debt is a big thing. Now, they haven't announced it yet, but they will. And what they're going to pledge is if the Democrat gets elected as part of their platform, they are going to not only make all college education free, but they're going to pay off all outstanding college loans. Now, once again, folks, won't happen, can't happen, and they know it can't happen, and you know it can't happen. Either of these programs alone would break our country. Both of them would put us, well, there's just no way. No way.
Well, let's talk about that for a second,
again,
Larry.
Just once again, Jason, if you're a college graduate, as many are, and you thought you were going to get the big job, that's why you were convinced to go and run up a $200,000 debt, and you're waiting tables at a restaurant, you're put back in that same situation. You may not even believe it's real, but you just about have to vote just to see if it would happen.
Right. It's such an appealing offer that you can't say no to it outright. You've got to at least try to see it through. We're talking about, life-changing debt for some of these people. And certainly in the case of $5,000 per person or $25,000 per family, that's an amount of money that could send someone to college, could pay off a mortgage, could help purchase a house, start a business. It's a big deal, and it's very difficult for people to turn that down. According to the 2010 census, Larry, there are about 37.1 million black people living in America, and if each one of them received $5,000, that would be $185 billion. I think a lot of these numbers for many people have become so esoteric and unrealistic that it's literally just a number on a page. I mean, there literally is nothing stopping the Federal Reserve from just, hitting a button on a computer keyboard, creating this 185 billion and disseminating it to any person in America who is black. The question, and we always hear the ignorant people in Congress like Ocasio-Cortez making the comparison that, well, we have all this money for wars, we should have money to give out to people for paying off their college loans or giving them free health care or giving them reparations for slavery. And I mean, this is a really touchy subject. When you first brought it up, I sort of dismissed it, to be honest with you. I just thought it was, something that you had kind of pulled out of the blue, and I didn't see how it could possibly be a platform. But we first saw hints of this when Jussie Smollett staged that fake hoax hate crime where he had a noose around his neck, obviously trying to polarize people in the United States, pitting black people against white people. Smollett claimed that this was a racist attack in the middle of the night with two guys, alleged rednecks who happened to watch Empire, a show that I really doubt that rednecks who are racists would watch or even be aware of. And that led to Cory Booker talking about these reparations. There are really some thorny issues surrounding it, aren't there?
There are. I mean, it would just going after it could cause a major cultural conflict in this country.
Yeah.
Think about this, and I'm not trying to be anything but me. Call me a racist, call me a nut, call me whatever. There will be an awful lot of white people, Mexicans, Chinese, Americans. They're going, wait a minute. We didn't have any part of slavery.
Right.
And then they're going to be extremely bitter to see in your figures there $180 billion going to people for something that we didn't do.
even potentially people whose families weren't affected directly by slavery. It seems problematic.
But it could cause a spark to create a conflict the likes of which we have never seen in this country. Yeah. Just think about it. Just the Democrats having the audacity to play with something like this is so dangerous and scary. If they don't care, it's about winning. And the blacks by now, I wish, knew that the Democrats have done this to them over and over and over again. They have pledged, they have promised, they have quote unquote, but when they get elected, take President Obama. You know, I remember the black lady in Philadelphia or wherever saying the minute he won, they were going to get some Obama's stash. And the blacks thought they had it coming finally. And as the net result of 8 years of Obama, they ended up worse off than when they started with it. It happens over and over, and it will happen again.
Yeah. I personally think, Larry, most black people are way smarter than the general, political zeitgeist gives them credit for. And I think there are a lot of black people who feel betrayed by Barack Obama, that he didn't do enough for black people in America while he was president. And I think that there's a real problem in the black community. For anybody who wants to express their opinion about Obama, if it's negative, they get a lot of pushback from other black people.
Well, you're right. But that's exactly why the Democrats are going so far out on a limb with this reparation. They know, thanks to the Obama years, they've lost support in the black community. They know.
Yeah.
And they're buying it back. But they're buying it back with false promises and false hopes all over again. Now, there's one other thing they're going to add that you'll be seeing coming up. As we get nearer to the election, people talk today about the health care. And they talk about lower premiums, lower deductibles. The Democrats are going to make a part of their platform that there will be no deductibles, no premiums. You just go in anywhere you want to go and it's free. Vintage, what's your name, Cortez. It's just going to be free.
I don't
understand. And all of that is designed to excite that soft vote.
Right. But it's really sort of soft socialism, right, Larry? I mean, one of the things that makes America great is this idea of capitalism. And I think that what we really need is regulated capitalism so that we don't have these corporations that just run wild and make so much money so quickly that they can do things that really should be illegal, like lobbying politicians to make laws that further benefit their corporations and prevent antitrust litigation and all these kind of things. I mean, what we've got right now is a really distorted form of capitalism that we've heard the term corporatocracy for a long time, but I think it really is starting to evolve and grow in dangerous ways. We know that there are companies like Apple and Google whose annual revenue exceed the GDP of many countries, and these companies control over technologies that the founding fathers could have never conceived of, and frankly, the current Congress doesn't even understand, much less have the ability to regulate. It really puts them in a position of power. I think it was Bill Binney who told me that he felt that Google was a serious threat to the NSA, and now we've just heard that everybody's favorite social media robber baron, Mark Zuckerberg, and his Facebook plan a global financial system based on their new cryptocurrency, the Libra. Of course, Libra, obviously some play on the Latin word for meaning free, which seems like doublespeak for what the opposite of this will be. We've heard forever that globalists who want a supranational government controlled by intellectual and financial elites also want a one world currency. When we see the growth of companies like Facebook and Twitter, it's not inconceivable, Larry, that something like this cryptocurrency Libra could become a major currency in very short order, possibly faster than any other currency humankind has ever seen.
You know, Jason, if you take a realistic view, and I'm not trying to be conspiratorial, I'm not trying to be fictional, I'm just take a realistic view. These mega computer giants have taken over our Congress. They have a bigger platform, and if you think about it, they have more sway over public opinion than does Congress. So it stands to reason, I think anybody should see that they're competing to take over, buddy, to take over.
Right.
And the one thing they need to take over and to complete this globalization process is they need America to fall under the spell of socialism.
Right.
You see, then we become a slave state. And that's what they need.
Now, that's interesting that you say that, Larry, because the government giving out money, even if it's under the auspices of reparations for slavery, that really is socialism. They're giving out money. We've heard about reparations. There was a movie recently about a particular German family or Austrian family that was suing the German government to recover artworks that had been stolen by the Nazis. And I know people are going to accuse me of being biased, but I don't know that much about that case, but as I understand it, that seems quite different. If a particular family identifies a particular artwork and presents evidence that it was owned by their family and stolen in an act of war, I can understand them suing to get that back. But this notion that anyone who is black and alive in the United States in 2019 deserves $5,000 for horrendous human rights atrocities and torture that was done hundreds of years ago, and as you pointed out, is being paid for potentially by people who are American now, but had nothing to do with that, doesn't seem fair to me. It seems like sort of clandestine socialism where they're just giving out money.
Well, remember, let's look at Venezuela. Venezuela was one of the wealthiest nations, maybe the most wealthy nation in Central America. Now, do you believe that they told the people of Venezuela that if they would transform their government to socialism, that they'd end up where they are now? Do you think that's what made the people of Venezuela vote overwhelmingly to change to socialism?
Definitely not.
No, they lied. That's all this is. This is just a lie. Now, another thing I told you, in the interest of time, me trying to hold on, I told you that one of the things that Trump has got to use, and he is, and he listened and he did, is the Democrats were all talking with Bernie Sanders, Cortez, all of them, all the candidates at the time, if you'll remember, were talking about democratic socialism. They were actually using the word socialism.
Yeah.
Because of that, it gave Trump a tool to use, since the Republicans and Trump will not be able to use sweeteners. It gave him a tool. Make people understand, make his thought base understand that if you don't vote and the Democrats win, we will become a socialist country. They're telling you we're going to be. And I warned you some time ago, Jason, that they would stop doing that. Specifically, I told you when Biden started entering the race. You'll notice you never heard Joe Biden say democratic socialism. He won't mention the word socialism. We found out last week, and I told you they would force the people to stop saying it, right?
Right. Yeah.
Remember that? I said they will stop saying that. Now, stopping saying it, and the programs they introduce are socialism. So just because you don't say it don't mean they're not. But they got to quit saying it because they knew they were energizing Trump's base. So last week we hear that even Bernie Sanders, they have all quit using the word socialism in their campaigns. Just like it was coming.
You know, Larry.
Now,
Mark is in the comments saying that we already have socialism. What do you think of that?
Mark is not that far from wrong.
Yeah.
We are in the throes of socialism now. That's why I have been so adamant, Mark, with all of you. That's why I'm here today, and I shouldn't be, but that's why I'm here. In 2020, November of 2020, this nation will determine whether we cross over in socialism totally or we put up another line of defense to try and stop it. But make no doubt about it, Mark, and all of you, socialism has its grips on this country right now.
Yeah.
It does. And if you doubt it, look at the pressure being applied to President Trump. Mm-hmm. You see, I told y'all when Trump was elected, before he ever took office, he would be impeached. It's on the record everywhere. Alex Jones everywhere. I said he would be impeached. Nobody could have known that. But he was. He's going to be. Why? Because Donald Trump is the last vestige of a candidate that believes in capitalism in America the way it's been. And you'll notice they didn't come after his agenda like they would most other party candidates or presidents. They want him out.
Right.
They don't want him or us anywhere near Washington, D.C. And when we're all gone, when Trump's gone, so too will go the Senate. Think about it, folks. If people go in and vote Trump out, what makes you believe they would turn around and vote for a Republican to come back into the Senate?
Right.
If Trump loses, I promise you all, the Democrats will have the House, they will have the Senate, and they will have the presidency. And within 6 months to a year, we will be a full-blown, full-throated socialist nation. May not call it that. That's what it'll be. You can bet on it.
Yeah. Now, Larry, another thing you and I were speaking about prior to the call was how, back to this concept of social media and technology companies gaining sort of more power than the government in certain regards, you know, they have got huge sway over the information that the general public can see. You know, Laura Loomer went and investigated Ilhan Omar, found that there was no furniture in the home that she said was her residence that qualified her to run for Congress in Minnesota there. Laura said there's no furniture in the house. That seems unusual to me that someone would live in a house and not have furniture. Seems like possible evidence that that house was purchased or rented just to establish a residency in a district where Omar could win, and is possible evidence of election fraud. She's been accused of tax fraud now, being married to two different people at the same time. Laura has also provided information that suggests that Ilhan Omar had married her brother to do some immigration law shenanigans, number of questions. And Laura was basically banned from Twitter, banned from Facebook, publicly maligned by Facebook. These companies have the ability to literally destroy someone's income. We've heard about other companies, Sargon of Akkad, Carl Benjamin was blocked from Patreon for hate speech. Now, nowhere in the Constitution does it say that anyone spouting hateful speech about another group should be denied income, denied access to a bank account, denied access to have their words heard. Certainly calling to violence, encouraging other people to do illegal acts, that you cannot do. But we have this new wave of, you know, rights or lack of rights that are controlled by these de facto digital public forums, where if you say something that they don't like, because they are private companies, they have the ability to cut off your voice. But as private companies that have more power than, you know, government or government agencies, or in this case, the Constitution, these things are overpowering the Constitution. It's a dangerous situation.
Well, it absolutely is. It is. And I've told you already. Do you want another one of my predictions?
Sure.
Not really a prediction, I know it's coming. They're going to ban, during this campaign, they're going to take all conservative internet programs off. They won't be there anymore. They won't be there. You think we're being censored now Wait until they block it out.
Right.
Now, you say, well, maybe somebody is saying, well, that can't happen. Hide and watch. Tell me this, any of you. If tomorrow all of the platforms just decided anybody with contrary speech to what they believe is out and just shut them down. Tell me, folks, what anybody could do about it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we've tried to, there's nothing to be done. It's true. I mean, you know, these big corporations control companies. One of the things that I've done to try to avoid censorship is we moved a lot of the programming from Crowdsource the Truth over to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Those are two great ways for viewers to support the show and for us to have at least some temporary protection from this giant YouTube purge that's going on. But of course, as Patreon grows, you know, I remember last year I was at Patreon's annual conference, and Jack Conte, who in my estimation is a very sincere and nice guy, gave a great speech about not wanting Patreon to be taken over by Google or Facebook. And I feel like there was someone in the audience who heard that and perhaps had different plans for Patreon than Mr. Conte, and I haven't been in direct communication with him since then, but obviously we've seen things happen where credit card processors and huge investors can obviously exert influence. So it's very important that we have regulated capitalism. We don't want people like George Soros to be able to, you know, fund all these clandestine operations. I mean, you know, here's a guy who's destroyed economies and fomented wars and conflict around the world. Larry, isn't it true that one of George Soros's key plays is to initiate an immigration crisis in a country, to overwhelm local law enforcement, overwhelm the economy, and just create chaos?
That's his modus operandi. He has used any means possible to engender and create chaos. And in most countries, now even us, you don't think that can happen. But he has found, by flooding people with illegal immigration, that it is easy to overwhelm and create that kind of chaos. Look at us now. Look at what's happening. And I do want to say one other thing. When they shut down the internet, remember this, they will do it at a time where even if there is legal recourse, it will not possibly be able to happen before the 2020 election, and they know it.
Right.
So they will block it there. And then you said regulated capitalism. We have that to a degree now. It's called Taft-Hartley.
Right.
But how do we get a government that is the best government money can buy? Just we, the people, don't have the money to buy it. How do we get our government that is raping our people in government, I should say, that are raking in money from these corporations? They get very little from us. How do we get them to apply the pressure to the corporations to invoke the laws that exist to prevent this from happening?
You like antitrust laws?
Jason, we didn't invent this. Why do you think they were afraid of this and created the Taft-Hartley and all the other things they did to bust up monopolies?
Right. They're not using it. I really would like to see President Trump invoke Taft-Hartley and start some, antitrust investigations. It's a really big deal. I'm not sure what he's waiting for. I really did enjoy the interview with George Stephanopoulos that aired just the other day. I think Donald Trump said a lot of things. What I've observed, Larry, is that you really need to listen to what Trump says. A lot of people, particularly people who dislike Donald Trump, just dismiss what he says as, sort of foolish nonsense. But I think that that's what he wants a lot of people to think. There are a lot of things hidden in what Donald Trump says that aren't necessarily immediately apparent. I want to ask you about one other thing.
Donald Trump knows what I know.
Yeah.
It would be ridiculous for him to try to invoke it now. he knows that if he wins in 2020, the same law of averages should take place with the House that we referred to if he lost in the Senate. It'd be very hard to conceive the people going in this volatile of a time and voting for Trump and then turning around and voting Democrats back in to control the House.
Right.
President Trump, if he gets reelected in 2020, should be able to, at least for some period of time, have the House and the Senate and his presidency. Then he knows he would stand a chance of going to Congress and invoking Taft-Hartley and busting the stuff up. But he has to bide his time right now, just like the rest of us, Jason.
Yeah.
He couldn't get it. He couldn't get it off ground base, nothing, if he tried it now.
Yeah,
and
you know, we've got a real lively chat going on today. A lot of people are saying that some of these social media companies are really actually just fronts for, you know, CIA and DOD projects. A lot of people are aware of something called LifeLog, and I'm just showing everybody this article from Wired here from 2004 talking about the Pentagon kills the LifeLog project. This is something that I was first introduced to by a guy named Quinn Michaels, and basically LifeLog was essentially exactly the same thing as Facebook, and LifeLog went away and Facebook came about. Many people have heard the rumors that Mark Zuckerberg is just a front man and that DARPA really created Facebook and is using it so that they can track everybody. Most people who have a smartphone have Facebook on the phone. It tracks them where they are. It listens to what you say, and if you talk about shoes, it's going to send you ads for shoes. If you say you're feeling sick, it's going to talk about ads for doctors nearby. But I want to shift our focus slightly, Larry, to another topic that a lot of people have been asking me about over the past couple weeks that you've been recovering. And I also want to remind everyone to visit nicholslive.com and help Larry out. He really does need our financial support. If you enjoy listening to the show, I think it should be a given that you're going to kick a few bucks Larry's way. You can do it on paypal.com using his Nichols Live at AOL PayPal address. You can also send Larry cash by sticking it in an envelope and mailing it to him over there in Conway, Arkansas. So Larry, people have been very intrigued, first of all, by the death of Hillary Rodham Clinton's brother that's received very little, surprisingly little media attention, and also the death of the former Arkansas state senator who people are really wondering what happened to. And we've just heard now that a former aide to the senator has been charged. Rebecca Lynn O'Donnell, 48, was arrested on Friday in connection to the death of the ex-senator. Is this something that you know anything about or have any insights that you could share with us?
Oh, very little. I talked to Ms. Collins extensively when she was trying to delve into this. And unfortunately, I warned her, she better be careful. And I have no idea if her death was related to the investigation she was into, or whether there was some dispute between her and whoever that lady is. I just don't know. But it's another case involving the Clintons where, guys, you just never know. You just don't. Now, relative to her, Hillary's brother, and then not making a big splash in the media, I would just say this. This is my opinion. And that's all it is, my opinion. After Hillary lost in 2016, she became hated by the Democrats. And they are doing everything they can to suppress her and keep her down. So to be honest, her brother, I don't think would make a big dent right now in the media. And you got to think also, Jason, coverage in the media has to compete. And to put his death in there in a schedule that's highly charged with every kind of thing in the world with Trump as president, you know, it makes a little bit of sense that they would have not spent much time with it.
But isn't it strange, Larry, that we still haven't heard about the cause of death? I mean, the guy was 64 and it's been like 2 weeks and they don't know the cause of death?
Not when you're around the Clintons, it isn't. I'm not implying anything. I'm just saying that's not strange. People around the Clintons for years and years and years, that's happened. Matter of fact, in Arkansas, when you committed suicide, Clinton's appointed medical examiner, Fahmy Malik, and then got a law passed in Arkansas. If somebody committed suicide, the case was sealed and nobody could open it, even the federal government.
Right. So he worked on the Democratic National Committee as an outreach coordinator. Boy, that really makes me think about, would he have ever worked with Seth Rich? Does he know anything about these hacks? You know, we've also learned that in addition to not examining the DNC server themselves, the FBI basically just took CrowdStrike's word for what they found there, just never even investigated anything having to do with it.
No, in regards to the comments you have with people saying that a lot of these platforms are CIA covers, let me give you something to think about.
Sure.
What if the CIA is simply an arm now of the mega corporations?
Right. It's
Folks,
always
you have
been
no idea how controlled our government is now by these power corporations. You really don't. I'll give you an example. Our justice system, Jason, it's already socialist. It's already there. In our form of justice today, remember, we're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. Today, you're guilty by accusation unless you can prove yourself innocent. And today, if the government wants you, like Roger Stone and others, if they want you, like General Flynn, all of them, if the government wants you, they can drop massive resources in. You don't stand a chance. This is similar to every communist nation in the world.
Yeah.
You come out against the government in any socialist or communist nation, it is not uncommon, if they don't just outright kill you, to put you in jail for something that you may not have even heard of.
Right.
It's done every day. Well, I mean, our justice system's there now, buddy.
Yeah.
It's now.
Just making up charges. Well, Larry, isn't it very well known that the CIA, from its beginnings, was basically protecting the interest of major corporations under the guise of protecting America's financial interests? There was the 1954 Guatemalan coup that I think had something to do with United Fruit Company. Allen Dulles and John Foster Dulles were lawyers who then became the Secretary of State and the director of the CIA. So there's a long-standing pedigree of the CIA and the State Department working in coordination with huge corporations to carry out their bidding. And of course, these corporations can then engage in lobbying activities and financial contributions to political campaigns that are going to make decisions relative to the CIA and the defense of the United States that are favorable to those corporations. So, and then we've always heard about the revolving door when we've got people like James Comey, people like Robert Mueller going and working in the legal departments of Lockheed Martin and HBC and some of these huge companies that they work for where they're paid millions of dollars. These guys are certainly not working for the interests of the people of the United States. They're working for the interests of the corporations and their friends.
And why do the corporations pay these people huge amounts of money? It's because of the access that they gain through these people.
Yeah, yeah. So we really need Donald Trump to stop this practice.
Say one more thing about it.
Sure.
When you look at that new currency, the Libra, the cryptocurrency, one of the strongholds for America has always been our financial. Federal Reserve, the money we have. Well, what if, through the different platforms like Facebook, what if they create a whole standard of finance that overwhelms ours?
Right.
Then what do you do?
I don't know.
I mean, this is serious stuff.
Well, it seems to be what they're doing with this Libra.
That's exactly right. And listen, it's all coming down November 2020. That's when it's coming down, guys.
Yeah. Yeah, this is a really important point, Larry, because you think about a company like Facebook. I mean, when you were in your 20s and going off to Vietnam and doing all the things that you were doing, the biggest companies in America were companies like AT&T and Kodak, companies that had been built over 100+ years and sort of had a logical, viewable evolution. But now, just as computers empower each of us to do things that as an individual human would take months or years, these computer and technology-based companies seem to be growing to massive sizes faster and faster. I mean, Facebook and Google have been around for a fraction of the time some of those other companies have been around, and their growth seems unstoppable. So I just wonder what will happen when they introduce this currency and what the implications will be for the U.S. Treasury, the U.S. dollar, etc.
I remember in the early 80s, of course, I worked with the Stevens brothers, and they owned a corporation called Arthur Gas. Their president was a friend of mine, Sheffield Nelson. He was the president and CEO of Arthur Gas. And Forbes did a story about him being the highest paid executive in the country. Mm-hmm. You know what his salary was?
Don't know.
This was in the early 80s, 81 or so. Maybe it's a little before that. $1.5 million. And that was not just his money, but that was his money and his perks.
Stock and all that.
$1.5 million. Think about it.
Yeah.
That's nothing today.
Right. Yeah, well, it's a fraction of what these other guys are earning. Yeah, so I mean, it's an accelerated kind of hockey stick pace at which these things are growing, and I think that we've got a culture of kind of feeling like everything is unlimited. Now that we've got Ocasio-Cortez in Congress voting for herself to get a raise, she suddenly can't live on $174,000. I think she was making under $30,000 previously. Very strange.
Well, Jason, I hate to do it, buddy. I'm out of gas.
No problem, Larry. I think everybody understands it was a struggle for you. I appreciate you coming on the phone to share this information with everybody, and I hope that people will go and visit nicholslive.com. Click on the Donate tab up top, and that's going to bring you right to the page with all the information that you need to financially support Larry. You can send him money over PayPal, use his address nicholslive@aol.com, or just stick a $5 or a $10 bill or a $20 bill in an envelope and mail it to Larry there in Conway, Arkansas. Larry, I hope you're feeling a little better next week. We can stay on for a bit longer. I also want to remind everybody that Crowdsource the Truth is sponsored by you. If you're watching the show, if you enjoy the show, please go over to patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Become a sponsor and keep the show going. You're going to get access to tons of great sponsor-only content. Tonight, we've got more Pain with Michael Moore. That's going to be coming up at 8 p.m. Eastern. Larry, thanks so much for joining me today. I hope you feel better soon, and we'll speak to you next week.
Jason, thank you. I'm sorry I have to leave, buddy.
Don't apologize. Don't apologize. Larry, everybody appreciates you being here, and I'll see everybody later. Thanks.